Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. Before we get started, I want to apologize for what happened last week. I've been doing these calls for nearly 8 years, and that's the first time the call dropped. We got into the call about 8 or 10 minutes. The call dropped. I called the free conference people. I called the individuals that were the purveyors of that, and I called them numerous times, and all I got was a response of all circuits busy, all circuits busy. That means one of two things. Either they were absolutely overloaded and all circuits were busy, or one of the critical towers was down. So we don't know exactly what caused it. We have spoken to them several times this week. I'm going to assume that never happens again. But if it should, then there's a problem that's going to have to be resolved. So let's just go ahead and get started. For those of you, again, calling in for the first time, we like to move quickly through the call, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. And we have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for these other pre-valued currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. Obviously, the most relevant piece of information is the prospect of the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. Despite some of the things going on the ground in Iraq as we speak, we still continue to believe that January of 2020 is the most plausible time frame for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. Now, it is true that the protests and violence, unfortunately, continues primarily for two reasons. There are still corrupt politicians that are acting in very nefarious ways within the government, and, of course, the continued Iranian interference as they interfere in all of their neighboring countries for different reasons. Now, the government of Iraq recently received visits from the UN President Brahim Shali and a U.S. delegation of House representatives. They even had a cabinet meeting in the presence of these visitors. Iraq's fear at this point is that the UN may pull them out of Chapter 7. Now, of course, if that were to happen, and I don't think that it will, but if that were to happen, that would push the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar probably to January of 2021. But again, for a number of reasons, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, the Parliament has agreed to a number of things. One is to make sure that the budget does include the funding for all of the issues that the protesters had voiced concern. They also agreed to begin payments pursuant to the hydrocarbon law that was passed in 2018, which means that Iraqi citizens will now be receiving their proportionate monthly checks for the revenues generated from the sale of oil. There's also good news that if you read closely in the law, you will see that in order for those payments to be made, they have to be made at a rate slightly higher than the U.S. dollar. Now, we have discussed in the past, when the reinstitution occurs, will the rate be pursuant to the rate between $3 and $4 where the Iraqi dinar will probably end up pursuant to Basel III compliance, or will it initially come out at a premium against the dollar, say somewhere between $1.15 and $1.25? Well, if this information is correct, that's probably what's going to happen. The payments pursuant to the hydrogen carbon law will be based on a dinar valued at a slight premium over the U.S. dollar. The CBI has also announced that they're going to continue to pursue the final deletion of the zeros and elimination of the currency auctions. Now, this is where the Iranian interference, aside from their fomenting violence and these protests within Iraq, because they're trying to destabilize the country, they want these auctions to continue because they have a way of interjecting themselves into those auctions and ending up with U.S. dollars. Iran needs hard currency to mitigate against the United States sanctions. So Iran continues to be a bad player. Unfortunately, one of the reasons that's true is because the existing Prime Minister Mahdi is a Shia, and he's very sympathetic to the Iranians. But there is more good news, and it's that the Prime Minister Mahdi has finally agreed to resign with the passage of the new election law. Parliament's response to that has been that they intend to put the new election law on a fast track and pass the 2020 budget. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. By getting the new election law passed, that ensures that the intransigent Mahdi government and cabinet will be removed. And second, the passage of the 2020 budget will require that the government state a rate for their dinar. Now, they cannot state the rate that they had last year of 1180. They're going to have to come up with a rate probably a slight premium over the U.S. dollar. So despite the fact that there are these violent protests, there has been the interference of the Iraqi government. There's been some pushback by the corrupt politicians within Iraq. It still looks like January 2020 is the most plausible date for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. Now, that's certainly good news for those of us that have had currencies for a long period of time, some of our clients even over a decade. But it also means that people are running out of time to get their affairs in order prior to this reinstitution. Now, most of the people that are dinarians are not extremely wealthy people that are affluent and sophisticated investors. Many dinarians are people that for the first time in their life will have a substantial amount of wealth. This means that they don't understand a lot of the issues that they're going to be dealing with, particularly with overnight wealth. And they certainly don't understand that there's things that they can do prior to the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar that are going to make their lives a lot easier. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your pre-RV package of asset protection trusts. There are a number of entities that one can establish to provide asset protection, but there is a reason that Trusts Unlimited has established a package of irrevocable trusts. Now, some individuals have established LLCs and sub-S corporations. They do provide some asset protection, but they are essentially business structures, and they do separate business assets from personal assets. But remember, these currencies are personal assets. Many courts have ruled that if an LLC or sub-S corporation is owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group, that LLC or sub-S can be pierced for civil litigation. So these entities are insufficient if you're trying to provide genuine asset protection. Some individuals have established revocable or living trusts. Now, those trusts do exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and in some situations, if they're properly structured, can substantially reduce the federal estate tax exposure, but they can provide no privacy or asset protection. So the revocable or living trust would be inappropriate as well. Lastly, some individuals have established single irrevocable trusts, and they do provide privacy and asset protection. However, there is inherent weakness in a single irrevocable trust, and it's this. All of the assets are owned by one trust or one legal entity. So if any asset within that trust gets involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily take all of those assets in your net worth into that litigation as well. Therefore, the only bulletproof asset protection that you can establish in order to provide the ultimate in privacy and asset protection is a package of irrevocable trusts, and I'm going to explain how that would work. First, by establishing such a package, you would preserve your privacy and your anonymity, because assets held within our irrevocable trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public would have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would be frustrating because it would come along at the precise time that you've just enjoyed the revaluation of these currencies. And third, the cost of a 6-year IRS audit would probably be substantially higher than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust package is in place and your currencies have been assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of the revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's only a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within the trust. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust package, they cannot do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because included within it is a special gift subtrust. This has been designed specifically for individuals that wish to give funds to friends and family. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of the trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the lump sum, then you can gift those currencies to them through our specifically and specially designed gift subtrust. Because you're gifting through this subtrust, their U.S. dollars will be protected along with yours. The language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning that you can gift these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. And because you're gifting through this trust package, you will be able to manage, invest, control, and distribute this money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs in a state of $25 million. Now this estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years and in some cases even decades, and your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You assign them to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been structured in such a way as to allow you to protect yourself because of the cost and delay for any plaintiff to proceed with civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of civil award would be $5,000, the value of the property at the time you transferred it to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop-loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection has been accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is how it works. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000, transferred the currencies to our trust. They revalued for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this critical from an asset protection perspective? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards. And since you don't own anything, the plaintiff would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that sub-trust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets are safely protected in the other sub-trusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate sub-trusts are separate legal entities or separate legal persons, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal person. So your package of trusts work very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, all of these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Many of our clients have already expressed a desire to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is through the direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll have our tax specialists there to assist you with tax issues. Our offshore specialists will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well to discuss all of your options with regard to the repositioning and diversification of your funds after the revaluation. There are a number of reasons why you're going to need to reposition assets. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the respective governments of these countries, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth out of the banks and at work in different markets. And third, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-based currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want, again, a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts, which consist of one master trust, which will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one optional gift subtrust, which can be converted anytime to a standard subtrust, and 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold financial assets like physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians, we understood that that price tag was just going to be unaffordable for many. So we basically simplified this trust package and back-end loaded it, and in so doing, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's simply not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which is basically our out-of-pocket cost just to produce and deliver the trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. With this approach, anybody that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on the card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd be paying under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for the reasons that I've stated. One other point. The only other cost, lifetime, for this trust package would be the rather nominal paralegal fees for funding the trust, making any changes to the trust, or altering anything within the trust. As an example, let's say after the revaluation you called us and said, I'm going to purchase a $1 million home on the beach and I wish to place it in a subtrust for protection. The paralegal fee to establish a subtrust to protect a $1 million home would be somewhere between $100 and $150. So again, it's a very nominal fee, and again, it's a pure pass-through to the paralegals. Now, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. We're going to go to the Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, and again for our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for over a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And this is invariably at the very times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives as we understand them. Again, thanks for listening to the call. with the potential reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in January of 2020, people are running out of time to get their affairs in order. We're going to the Q&A in just a minute. I would suggest those of you that find this call compelling have a pencil and paper ready. I will give you our contact information. I strongly suggest you get our initial package. You're under absolutely no obligation by doing so, even though everything in the package that you need to proceed is included. So in addition to that, after you review the package, you can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you in every way, and there will be no consultation fee. So let's go ahead and go to the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, again, let me give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is Trusts with an S, Unlimited, LLC.com. Our email address is Trusts with an S, Unlimited, LLC at gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically, pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, emails may go out as often as weekly. So let's go to our calls here. Our first call is from area code 347. That's 347. Go ahead.
Yes, hello. My name is Praveen from New York. Now, I have a question about the Iraqi election law. Now, once that is passed, does it have to be new elections? Do they have to be scheduled? Or if once, let's say, Mahdi resigns, then will there be a replacement of paper, or do the elections have to go through all over again?
Okay. Once they pass the new law, a lot of things can happen. Mahdi can agree to cooperate fully with the demands of the protesters and the Sadrists, or there could be a new election, and that could probably move faster than you might imagine. The third option would be that the Sadrist coalition has enough votes to put temporary individuals in place while they proceed with the election. So there are a lot of things that they could do if they want to proceed so that they can reinstitute in January. I believe that they understand that they need to reinstitute. I believe they understand that if they don't do it in January, they're going to have a problem. And I believe that the visit from the UN and the United States delegation means that they mean serious business here, that they want them to clean up their act, get rid of the corrupt politicians, and dissuade the Iranians from their continued involvement. The other thing that I will mention, that I did mention before, is that the United States Treasury still has the Iraqi government under the OFAC sanction. OFAC sanction being the Office of Foreign Assets Control. So the Iraqis are on notice that they need to dot the I's and cross the T's and get this done. And I really, despite the problems there, at this point in time today, I really think they're going to get it done. And I really continue to believe that January of 2020 is still the most plausible date for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar.
Okay, another thing now. So, I mean, if there are new election schedules, is that going to push back the evaluation, or wouldn't push it back?
I don't think it will at this point. Now, anything can change in Iraq. We're talking about Iraq. The mere fact that we've been having these calls for 8 years tells you all you need to know about Iraq. But based on we can only make determinations based on the information at hand. And the information at hand, in my opinion, tells me that January 2020 still is a very plausible date.
Okay, another thing now. Once the the budget 2020 budget is passed, right? You said you had to have a new rate there. Does the CBI have to? Is that budget going to force the CBI to revalue at that rate, or it's up to the CBI?
Yes. The CBI doesn't. The government doesn't work for the CBI or the Parliament. The CBI works for them. If they establish a rate, the CBI will have to follow through. Now, remember, the CBI though has to complete the deletion of the zeros and announce the complete permanent suspension of the auctions. Of course, they're saying they're going to do that, but if everything else is in place, they have no choice, because a lock that's the governor of the CBI will be fired in a millisecond if they don't follow through on their end, if the government gets everything else done.
No, but I was reading that the deletion 10 was already deleted. Is that the case, or no?
No. The deletions really means the collection of the current sufficient collections of the currency. That's going to have no effect. We are not affected until they delete the zeros. They have to tell these people that a $25,000 note in country is now $25, or 25 dinar, from 25,000 dinar to 25 dinar. That's what's got to happen. And again, in my opinion today, is it's going to happen.
Okay, but the OFAC has to lift. The United States has to lift the sanctions also. If the CBI changes the rate, then can they delay in lifting the sanctions, or will they? The sanctions are conditioned on them getting this done. They want to get it done by January. So if they get everything done before January, the sanction will be lifted. Oh, okay. I know it's possible they could. I know they could do it before then, but they have to they would have to retroactively do it or recalibrate the budget for the last month. I don't know. They would definitely have to recalibrate if it doesn't get done in January, because they come out with the 2020 budget at the 1180 rate. But it's a lot easier to do, because what the government could do is postpone governmental payments for a couple of weeks or even a couple of months to recalibrate. The problem is when the government starts making expenditures in, say, the first or second quarter, and then they try to recalibrate. So it can be done, but again, it would have to be done in January. Okay. When is the 2020 budget going to be passed? This month or next month?
I suspect early next month.
Oh, boy. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. I guess it's possible the budget could pass earlier, but I'm giving them 30 days to get their act together, because it's Iraq. Okay, our next caller is area code 312. That's 312. Go ahead, Les.
Hey, Jim. Good morning. No, good afternoon to you.
What's up?
Nothing much. I was just looking or listening to what you were saying about Iran beating the U.S. sanctions by Iraq having those auctions and Iran being there to grab the dollars. So is that who the auction is actually for? Iranian? Not Iranian. Yeah, Iranian.
The auction is designed for the government to get U.S. dollars, which is the reserve currency they're using in country. But
Iraq or Iran?
For Iraq, but if other countries get involved in the auction, they end up with U.S. dollars. And if we have corrupt officials in Iraq that are assisting Iran, then Iran gets hard currency to circumvent the U.S. sanctions. So basically, Iraq's being put on notice. If you assist a terrorist nation like Iran, that's going to affect your status with the UN and Chapter 7. So basically, that's why the United States and the UN went to Iraq, to make them understand you've got to get rid of the corruption in your own government, and you have got to separate yourself from Iran. Now, the only way the United States can deal with Iran is either through having troops, and they still have some troops in Iraq, or through the sanctions. And the two largest customers for Iran are Iraq and China. Now, the United States has not yet linked their dealings with Iran with the trade negotiations. I don't think that they will. the way they're dealing with Iran is not through the sanctions, through the trade deals with China, but through sanctions on Iraq. So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But despite all of this confusion, I still feel that we have a good shot at January 2020 for the reinstitution.
Okay. All right. Last question. So with the trust, we have 10 sub-trusts, correct?
You have 8 sub-trusts and a gift subtrust. You have 10 total trusts.
10
you
total.
Have 10 Now, remember, you can add sub-trusts. We offer an initial 8, but because right after the reval, a lot of people already have existing assets they want to throw into sub-trust. And for a slightly higher paralegal fee, we can create additional sub-trusts beyond the 10, beyond the 8.
Okay, and that's usually, what, $100 for each sub-trust?
100 to 150, but it might be if after the initial 10, I don't know, it might be 250. But if you come to us and say, hey, I just bought a rental property for $300,000 and I want to create a sub-trust to protect it from me ever being sued if someone falls and breaks their back, for $250, it's in a sub-trust and you're protected.
Gotcha. All right. So if I wanted to gift something to someone, say a nominal dollar amount, $1 million, I can put that in one of the sub-trusts. You would either gift it to them outside of the trust with a standard gift letter, or you would gift it to them through our gift sub-trust. Individuals that have our gift sub-trust, included in that is a document called the Minutes of the Meeting Gifting Letter. All you would do is name the person and how much of whatever currency you're giving them, and that's all you need to do. Gotcha.
But those documents must exist and be executed and notarized pre-RV.
Prior to the RV. Gotcha.
Yeah, whether you're gifting outside of a trust or inside of a trust, the gifting document must be notarized so that if in the event you are being audited by the IRS, they can't say, well, how can you prove to me that you made this gift pre-RV? And the answer is because it's notarized at the bottom. See you later.
Gotcha. All righty. I haven't heard my buddy on this morning, just me and one other caller.
Yeah, I guess people got scared off. Our call dropped last week. Oh, actually, we did have a lot of people on, but I'd say we get 90% of our callers listen to the replay.
Yeah, okay. Well, this one sounds like it's going to be on replay, so thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Have a great day. Say hi to the professor, and I'll talk to you later.
Okay, take care, Les. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Well, Les is our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. If the things we've said are of interest, I strongly suggest you contact us and get our initial package. Again, you're under absolutely no obligation whatsoever, even though the package includes everything you need should you decide to proceed. But again, that's entirely your decision. You can contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. Our next call is, of course, next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Have a great week, everyone, and thanks for listening. Bye-bye.